What is going on, everybody? John Impemba here with Andrew Cooper. Welcome to the Quick Fantasy Football Show. It is NFL Week 6 preview day here. Coop, my guy, it was a tough Week 5 for many a fantasy manager. Justin Jefferson, James Conner, Devin Achane, Anthony Richardson, all placed on IR following Week 5. Brutal blow for the middle of the season.
Yeah, dude. I mean, like, not what you wanted to see. Thank goodness Travis Kelce, he has the ankle, but he's practicing. He's going to play because if they took Kelce away, if they took
he looked so upset after that. Like, everybody thought maybe he blew his Achilles out or
it looked bad. Yeah. We could have lost basically like the top wide receiver. There's arguments that Achane is the most fun running back, and Travis Kelce and Anthony Richardson. It's like we almost lost like all four of the most fun players at each position, basically. So at least we kept our tight end. But yeah, Justin Jefferson IR, Devon Achane IR, Anthony Richardson to the IR. Brutal. Roshan Johnson still in concussion protocol.
Yeah,
There's a lot of injuries
coming
up. Like,
yeah, pretty ugly.
Pretty rough, man. Bills lost a bunch of players on defense playing on that, that brutal turf over there. Lost Matt Milano and Daquan Jones out for the season. Both of them. Matt Milano reportedly broke his leg. So, yeah, pretty rough for them as well.
Before we go down here today and break down all of the Week 6 matchups we touched upon, obviously some of the big news. Any other top stories to discuss here this week, Coop?
Yeah, before we get into it, let's take a quick look around at kind of the big things. One, Mac Jones got benched again, but there's already a report that Belichick already said no change of quarterback.
Yeah.
That was his answer. So Mac Jones will be back. Van Jefferson was traded. Basically, the moment that Cooper Kupp came back, Van Jefferson went from a full-time player to playing 2 snaps. And then within 2 days of that, he was moved. I guess, I don't know, maybe
can't predict Puka Nacua becoming the next coming here, but that's what happened. Tutu Atwell, and they're just like, sorry, Van, you're not as good as these guys. So see you later.
There you go. But, it's like Van. The thing about Van is that he is a very well-rounded player. He can fill in at all 3 positions if need be. He's like a great next man up. He can play split end, flank, or slot because his dad's an NFL coach. His dad is the wide receiver coach for the Cardinals. So there's always going to be a place for a guy like that. Think of like Zach Pascal is a perfect example where if you have one guy that can play all those positions, it saves you roster spots.
Right.
Because if you have DK Metcalf and then the backup for him is just as the same thing as DK Metcalf, that guy can't fill in for Tyler Lockett. He can't fill in for the slot. So having a guy like that is valuable. It's just the Rams said, hey, we got too many of these guys.
Does he eventually play over Mac Hollins in Atlanta, or is he just the backup?
So I think the problem you're going to run into is that even Mac Hollins doesn't play every snap. Only Drake London does, because you got Jonnu Smith playing snaps. You got Keith Smith, the fullback, playing all these snaps. So I really don't think any guy over there is going to play enough snaps to matter, but he might play over him. He might end up being the wide receiver 2, but what is the wide receiver 2 for the Falcons look like?
Right.
Who cares? They're fighting for the who cares position.
We saw in week 5, the activation of Jonathan Taylor, and then Zach Moss says, hold my beer. This is still very much the show that I'm running, and we'll see, if how much and how quickly we do get ramped up to Jonathan Taylor, because Zach Moss showed no reason to be taken out here.
Yeah, no, he looked awesome. So that's big curveball there. I think even the Zach Moss folks, they knew from the start that Zach Moss was potentially going to go away. So just the fact that he didn't is disappointing. I think everybody had come to terms with the fact that it was just going to be Jonathan Taylor now and he was going to go away. So the fact that he didn't, even I have Zach Moss on rosters, and I was sitting there saying, oh, well, I'm not going to drop him just in case. Yeah. But even I look at it and I'm like, well, yeah, he had a good week last week, but can I start him this week? I don't even know. So
here's the problem. I did not start him in a league last week because I figured at worst it's a timeshare, and how capable is he going to be in a timeshare? And then he goes off and explodes. But now I'm in a situation where it's like, okay, they say they want to ramp up Jonathan Taylor a little bit more. It's not a great situation to run the football this week against Jacksonville. Do I play Zach Moss and hope that he continues to perform well in the role that he has? Because eventually you think there's going to be some level of downgrade, or Zach Moss just is good now. And all of a sudden is going to keep continuing to be a productive player in a split share. Bye weeks and injuries obviously dictate a lot of that as well. But I have Zach Moss shares on my bench. I saw him score 30 fantasy points last week, and now I'm like, well, do I play him this week? Like, what am I doing?
It really is the worst possible situation for fantasy. And I think it really boils down to if you must. If you must, play him if you must. But if you have anybody that's an actual starting back that's not splitting, you go with them instead. So anyway, why don't we get into let's get into these matchups. Let's
Sure.
break it down the way we do.
Yeah, we got the Thursday night football matchup on tap here. The Denver Broncos continue to be fed to the wolves. They're on the road against Kansas City. Why we keep getting Denver in these primetime games, I don't know. It's not good for Denver's exposure, but Kansas City here, Denver's giving up a ton of points to literally everybody through the air and on the ground. I mean, I guess you can like some of their offensive weapons at receiver, Sutton or Judy maybe in this spot against Kansas City. Jaleel McLaughlin, I guess, is a real thing if Javonte Williams continues to be out or limited for the Denver offense. Russell Wilson is actually performing fairly well this year statistically. So you're not like sitting anybody in Denver, but you're loving the spots that Kansas City finds themselves in this week.
Exactly. No, but now the problem is, like, when you look at a spread like this, when it's 10 and you've got Travis Kelce with a rolled ankle, if the Broncos don't keep it close, does Kelce, like, do they use Kelce to the full extent? I mean, we've seen Noah Gray look all right. We've seen multiple games now where Kelce got nicked up and he was coming out of the game, right? So I don't know, like Kelce, for me, you obviously start him wherever you have him, but I'm not going out of my way to start him in like the Baby Bowl or on RT Sports or any of these sites where it's like you can pick anybody. Right. Yeah. You know what I mean? So from that standpoint, I'm not going crazy on Kelce. I'll probably still have him ranked as 10-1 though, because how can you not? It's a perfect matchup.
Yeah, I mean, in no sense of seasonal fantasy football, you're sitting Travis Kelce. No. So, and the fact that he's not on the main DK slate just means everybody's going to play him in Showdown. So
in Showdown, yeah.
So it's an all-in Kelce week. But the question really pertains to Rashee Rice because he continues to look like the best wide receiver in Kansas City, and yet they don't play him when he's on the field. Patrick Mahomes throws to him, so that's great. But why are they not putting him on the field more? Like, what's the situation with Rashee Rice here?
Yeah, I mean, so it's been described to me the way some teams do it. The way some teams treat this is like you go into practice and you figure out whether something works or not. And essentially you have a bag of tricks. That's the way they look at it and say, okay, like we know that Rashee Rice has 8 plays that work in practice. And sporadically, we're going to call those play. We're going to say, hey, this is a perfect spot for that play that worked in practice. And we're going to send Rashee Rice out there to run that play. And then we're going to take him out. That's how you can have a guy that only ran 10 routes last week, but had 5 targets, right?
And a touchdown.
And a touchdown. Yeah. And, it's like, that's just how they're rolling some of these guys out. Like you have a package where it's like Travis Kelce, the bag of tricks is endless. So he's always going to be out there and those are always going to be on the table. With some of these other guys, they look at it and say, hey, you know what? Like Justin Watson's the best blocker on this team. Same thing they did with Byron Pringle. They said, hey, you know what? Why don't we just leave this guy out there and have him block and not really target him? And then when the time comes, we'll bust out this bag of tricks with each of these guys. And it's really annoying for fantasy football, but some teams treat it like that. Mm-hmm. Like that's basically, when you hear Dan Campbell talking about Jameson Williams last year, that's what they said. It's like, hey, you know what? We got a couple packages that work for him. So he's going to play for those. So it's annoying for fantasy. And we're just hoping that the bag of tricks keeps growing for Rashee Rice. And that's why we like Rice versus some of these other guys that have been there forever. Right. Like Marquez Valdez-Scantling has had all the time in the world to expand his route tree and gain his trust. It's just not going to happen. So
Tony can't stay on the field. Right. Sky Moore doesn't seemingly have enough trust in Patrick Mahomes. So difficult. I love Isaiah Pacheco. Yesterday I filled in for you, obviously, on this show with Bender. And we took the underdog props. I took the Pacheco over 71.5 rushing yards. Running backs this season against the Denver Broncos. Here are the last 5 running backs they faced. Breece Hall ran for 177 yards. Khalil Herbert ran for 103. A-Chain ran for 203. Mostert had 82 in that same game. Brian Robinson had 87. So Isaiah Pacheco here in a double-digit point spread for me feels like a lock play on props this week if you're looking for some rushing yards.
I'm fully in, yeah. I got him in so as we talked about, like those RT Sports ones, I have him Pacheco going in one of those. I think it's a great spot for him. And so before we get to the chat, we're going to clear the deck on some questions in a moment. So we see you guys hanging out. Josh, Chaiwan, Priceless, Chris, what's up, gang? Thanks for tuning in with us. I just want to ask you one last thing from this game. Marvin Mims, are we ever going to get a full snap share, or is he going to just keep being a guy that plays 15 20 snaps and that's it?
I mean, yeah, I don't think they're gonna continue to put him out there because they use him on special teams. We talk about that a lot. Coop is a guy that sometimes that plays special teams doesn't always get the full run of offensive snaps as well, and
Right.
he's got Sutton and Judy ahead of him, so there's no reason for them to put him in a larger role, especially while he continues to sort of develop, like you mentioned, a route tree, familiarity with the NFL offense, and whatnot. But I am a bit surprised. He seems like a big playmaker. If this game gets out of hand, though, maybe he sees some extra snaps at the end of this game, an opportunity to show up, maybe score some garbage time. He'll be a super popular showdown play. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I mean that is how it goes with special teams. You see it with Rashid Shaheed. Like if the other team punts and you run, he returns punts and kicks. Like you
Yep.
run back that punt, you're tired, man. Like you come out and then you miss however many snaps. Like you can't play all the snaps if you're running back the kicks and
Right.
punts.
And if you're like a third and long package guy and your team's just getting first downs, and he's not out
You
there.
don't make
So
it out there.
you don't make it out there. So
Stinks for fantasy.
I agree. Before we get to the Sunday game, so let's just answer some of these questions here, Coop. Well,
Yeah,
we
for
got
sure.
some people in chat. Chris wants to know a trade question here, and you have the fantasy alarm fantasy football shows after us trade day over on Alarm Fantasy Football. So feel free to tune into that show, following us there, and get your trade questions answered. But Chris here wants to know receiving Chase in London, giving Adams and Flowers. So do you value Jamar Chase over Devontae Adams here? Obviously London and Flowers. I feel like I might rather have Flowers in that deal, so it all depends on your value of Chase over Adams here.
Yeah, I think Adams and Chase to me are super close right now. So I'm willing to go with Adams and Flowers because I just right now Flowers has to be over London, especially in full PPR with his target share. These trades though, I always have to ask what the motivation is, right? Like none of these guys are on bye week this week. It's a fairly even 2-for-2 trade. Like who proposed this? Well, like why is somebody trying to stack with Joe Burrow? Is like what's the motivation behind these trades? I always wonder that, especially when it's like a 1-for-1 wide receiver, running back for running back. Does this person you're trading with just think he's smarter than you? Does he think,
Right.
because that's basically what when someone sends you a 1-for-1 trade like that doesn't involve an injury, it doesn't involve a bye week, like that person is just straight up telling you that they know more about wide receivers than you do. So I try and figure out the motivation of that
My
trade.
assumption is they value Flowers probably a little bit more than London, given the usage in the offense. But I mean, and they're trying to maybe get up a better wide receiver 3 in an equal footing wide receiver 1. That's kind of my opinion.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, if there is a narrative. That's why we kind of got to know the narrative. Like for instance, if this person is sitting there saying, "I'm never going to start London, and I have Chase over Adams, so I'm willing to give him any," he's like, even if it's a marginal upgrade, I'm giving away an asset I'm never going to use in London. I mean, so maybe that's the case. But for me, I think I just rather have Adams and Flowers. I just rather have more viable guys in PPR.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Twitch gang here in the chat.
Twitch gang, baby. What's up?
Got an answer on this question previously. Wants to know, would you trade Tutu Atwell, Treylon Burks, and Gerald Everett for Josh Downs, Derek Carr, Jonnu Smith? So it's a 20-man PPR.
I was going to say, because Everett and Jonnu Smith aren't particularly relevant in most leagues, but in that league,
Jonnu Smith's probably quickly becoming more relevant.
Yeah, he is as of now. I would rather have Josh Downs, Derek Carr. Currently,
he's a backup QB. I mean, Carr isn't great, but I think I would rather Downs, Carr, and Jonnu than Tutu, Burks, and Everett.
I think just flat out would rather have, unless it's like a dynasty league. I mean, I think I just flat out rather have the second trade anyway. So the fact that you even need a backup QB as well. And what's the circumstance for the backup QB? Because if you need a backup QB because your starter is Anthony Richardson, then I mean that's an automatic done deal.
100% agree with you here. Chaiwan here with the question: pick 2 starts for the week: Jaleel, Amari, or Roshan if he plays. Of course, the Cardinals running back situation in flux with the James Conner injury. They added Tony Jones Jr. We don't know if Ingram's going to come off or be available this week after missing the last 2 weeks. So a couple of people here are on the Amari DiMercardo. I don't know if you caught yesterday's show here, Coop, but I have an autographed rookie Amari DiMercardo card here that I am hoping that he can come through for us this week.
I mean, that's nice, dude. What does those go for these days? Like 45 cents?
That one, about $1. But if he has a good week, it could be 5.
Could be 5, dude. Now, hey, 5 times your money, right? I mean, dude, and I'm honestly, Amari DiMercardo, you got to root for him because he's got an amazing name. So does Jaleel McLaughlin.
He's also kind of fast. I think I looked it up. He ran like a 4.4.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I look at it this way: is Javonte Williams playing or no?
Right.
Like, if Javonte Williams plays, then the question's easy. It's Amari and Roshan.
Mhm.
Also, what's the story with Keontae Ingram? What's his timeline like? Is he
Well,
going
that's
to
the
be?
thing. So he's missed the last couple of weeks on a neck injury. We don't know if he's going to be active or not. I would say the other issue is the Roshan question. We won't know. We may not know before Thursday. So if Roshan gets some practices in, good, but he's in concussion protocol. So if your only options are Jaleel, Amari, and Roshan, and you won't know, and you don't have a backup for Roshan Johnson this week, then you might have to play Jaleel and Amari anyways.
Yeah.
Because
So,
you can't take the 0. So.
Yeah, two things for us, for folks that might not be aware. This is how we run things. On Monday, I do like a breakdown of all the usage. On Tuesday, we do waiver questions. Today, on this show and the following show with me and Howard Bender, we do waiver questions. Sorry, we do trade questions. Then tomorrow, we really hit the lineup questions hard because we have the Thursday practice, which is a pivotal one. The thing about Wednesday is a lot of veterans or even just kind of mildly hurt guys get the day off. Like, going back through time, guys, Calvin Johnson didn't practice on a Wednesday for the last 6 years of his career, right, John? Like, he automatically had the day
Hopkins.
off.
Hopkins, one of the veteran Thursdays, right?
Never, yeah. He doesn't practice on Wednesdays. Then you check and see if he practices Thursday. So that's why we do most of the start sits tomorrow. The other thing is, if we're saying your name wrong, let us know. So, and that goes for anybody. Like, we want to get it right. Chaiwan, I know. I think it's supposed to be Priceless Pigeon, but I love that Howard calls him Prickless Pigeon because that's how it's spelled. But let us know what you want to be called. All right. Sure. Next question, Josh, should I pick up Atwell or Downs? I know what I'm saying here, John. What do you think?
Downs.
That's what we like. Yep.
Yeah, Downs. He didn't see like an increase in snap share or anything like that last week. He still played like 71%, but I like Gardner Minshew as a pure quarterback than Anthony Richardson.
And the other thing about that is that it does leave room for upside. Like, Josh Downs, we haven't seen the full setup for him. And when we get to, we'll talk about Downs more when we get to that game. Let's clear the deck on the questions and then get back to
let's rapid fire here, Coop. We'll save the analysis for when we get to these games here. So Taylor for Devonta Smith, if you're doing a trade right now.
I'd rather have Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, I'd rather have JT as well. Start, sit, Devonta Smith, Garrett Wilson, Zay Flowers. Are you sitting one, starting one? Let us know here, Twitch game. You gotta know what we're doing.
Yeah, Zombie, let us know. But I'm of that crew. I'm starting Devonta Smith. I don't care that he caught 1 of 5 targets. Like, we know the upside.
He's got the Jets matchup, but you have to assume that Sauce is on AJ Brown this week. So 10-man standard. We got Komet or Pitts.
I'm starting Komet in that game, even though, like, Pitts, I'm never dropping him because I'm hoping the knee gets better and I'm hoping they switch quarterbacks.
But for now, looked good last week.
He looked fine last week, but he still didn't play the whole game. Komet is just, right now, and especially with that matchup, Komet's probably going to be a safer spot.
Okay. Moss here in a timeshare against Jacksonville. James Cook's got the Giants this week.
James Cook, great matchup for Cook.
James Cook, I agree. Taking Chase in London. So you're trading away Adams and Flowers. I think I'd rather Adams and Flowers. I don't know.
It's up to you, Child. I mean, it's your team 100%. And again, like, for you, you might even need to start London. So if you rank Chase ahead, then do it, man.
Yep. Let's see here. Tanner wants to know Wilson, Flowers, or Devonta for wide receiver 2.
Wilson, Flowers. Oh, it's Devonta Smith.
Yeah, Devonta Smith still again. I agree. Jelly of the month. Half PPR, no IR, 5 running backs. Robinson, is Roshan playing? We don't know. Spears. Drop Spears to grab Hubbard or Breida. If you have Saquon, you can grab Breida and just play whatever one is active, I guess.
I would drop Spears for either of those players. Miles Sanders, quote unquote, pick something up this week. I don't know if it was the same groin injury or an additional injury, but at this stage, they really need to take Miles Sanders and sit him until he's healthy. And my concern, sometimes when you see guys playing like this every week, my concern is that they know it's something that's not going to go away. And they're just saying, hey, you know what? It is what it is. And
he hasn't been 100% all season. He went into the year with a groin injury. So
I mean, sometimes they look at the injury and just say, hey, you know what? This actually isn't going to heal. So you just got to play through it, and that's probably the worst case scenario. So I don't know.
Yep. Patrick here. I sat Goddard this week, and I feel dirty inside. Hey, it was finally Dallas Goddard week. What are we going to do about it?
I got yelled at all over the place for where I had Goddard ranked. Like, just the people were like, he needs to be ranked at the very bottom. Even I wasn't drafting him, but like, we still have to play it week to week.
Yep, it's true. All right, let's get to these games here. We have another morning game here, 9:30 a.m. Baltimore,
Let's
Tennessee.
go. Yeah, that's going to be a mess, man. And the thing is, like last year, I forget what the player was, but a player broke his leg on this same playing surface. Last week, Matt Milano broke his leg on this playing surface. And then now two of the most injury-prone teams, maybe the 49ers and Chargers are up in the mix too, but the Ravens and Titans have had serious injury issues, and these two guys are going to square off in that same field. It's not like they don't always play in the same stadium. This stadium, they take the soccer field away and then they roll turf out over whatever's underneath. And man, it's no good, dude. So kind of risky there. I mean, so John, I got to ask you, I mean, like with you have to start Derrick Henry. Like you're not going to bench Derrick Henry unless you have crazy running backs. DeAndre Hopkins is back. You're going to start Zay Flowers. Are there any other guys that you're willing to stash? Like, are you stashing Odell? Are you stashing Bateman? Are you stashing Treylon Burks? Or are you just kind of done with those guys?
No, I have no interest in Tennessee players at all.
Even Hopkins?
Well, Hopkins, yeah. I mean, you're going to – if you have Hopkins on your team, you're playing him. But, not doing Burks, Chig, Westbrook-Akine, not Tajay Spears, not really doing any of that. The Baltimore side, it's Flowers, Andrews, and, I don't even think I want to play the running backs. But,
yeah.
I mean, definitely not this week against Tennessee. But, I mean, I'm seeing nothing worthy of, Justice Hill or Gus Edwards to say, this is a guy that's even a flex-worthy play week to week. Now, the state of the running back position means that people have to kind of play these guys because there's been so many injuries and so many bad running backs this year. But I'm not encouraged by anything I'm seeing here.
Right. Gus, his name shouldn't be Gus. It should be Rugg.
What happened to the Gus bus when he was averaging 5 yards a carry? What happened to that guy?
I'm telling you, he's still the same guy. They just never let him play in full. That's what I was saying. His name shouldn't be Gus. It should be Rugg, because every time you think he's going to get the job, they just pull the rug out from under you.
Yeah.
And they have, some other guy playing past
a random touchdown. They're activating Kenyon Drake. I mean, just gross.
Melvin Gordon. So
I said this to Bender yesterday. When does a team trade for Rashad Penny, who is just an inactive every single week for Philadelphia? You're telling me that he's not better than some of these running backs that are starting for these rosters here?
If they sign Leonard Fournette, he would run for 5 yards a carry in that offense.
I would feel like pretty much anybody on any of these teams would do better with Penny or maybe Fournette at this point. Washington, Atlanta's at home, given 2.5 here against the Commanders. We saw how bad the Commanders' pass defense was last week, giving up the 200-plus yards to DJ Moore. Atlanta's passing offense woke up finally last week with Desmond Ridder going up against Houston. Where do you see here with this matchup?
Yeah, so I'm loving Logan Thomas right now. I mean, he looked great week 1, got hurt week 2, catching a touchdown. His backup played like every snap, got a bunch of targets. He got a bunch of targets again last week, and he's running more routes than anyone on the team except Terry McLaurin. He ran more routes than Jahan Dotson. And this is a point that we need to remember for future years, that in a lot of these spots, we look at players that are dialed in, right? Like Jamar Chase, Devontae Adams. We already know. Right. Mm-hmm. Then look for those guys. We know what's going to go on. You're probably not going to get tricked usage wise. Look for the hype guys that haven't done it yet. And the idea is that they're going to do it, because on the flip side of that, when it doesn't happen, there's profit to be made. Everybody loved Jahan Dotson. He's not really doing a whole lot. And the profit was with Logan Thomas. Look at Jahmyr Gibbs. Everyone thought he was going to go crazy, and the hype was overshadowed what the usage was, and the profit was David Montgomery. We see this every year. Think about these players that are hypothetical and say to yourself, okay, I like this guy, but what if everyone's wrong? What if they don't just pop off and become like the superstar? And Logan Thomas is the beneficiary in this case, where he, as of right now, if you talk about per game targets, he is the number 1 target on the team, 6.25 targets per game. And that's including the game where he hurt his head and he missed half the game.
All right.
Right. So basically, it's like if you were to actually take it and say, oh, he's played 3.5 games, now he's far and away the top target on a per game basis. But I mean, Logan Thomas, you have to be happy with what you're seeing.
I like him. I like Curtis Samuel still. Curtis Samuel is a guy that is getting work, getting targets. You mentioned Jahan Dotson. The touchdowns last year were obviously carrying a lot of his production. We thought when McLaurin banged up a little bit early this year, we see Dotson sort of take that step, and we didn't do it. Because one, the tight end's been taking on a bigger role, but also Samuel's finding more success in his Bieniemy offense, more consistent success with the Bieniemy offense. The other positive of Curtis Samuel is he's healthy, right? That's the thing, right? Like
there's an additional. I would even throw another positive in there is that every once in a while he gets a carry.
right.
And when you look at go back to 2020 with Curtis Samuel, and the only difference between him and the wide receiver threes was the rush work. And same with Chase Claypool. Like if you take Chase Claypool that year and Curtis Samuel that year and take away the carries, they're wide receiver threes. But when you sprinkle in that run work, now they're wide receiver twos.
Right.
So that's the great difference maker for some of these guys at that level.
I agree. Yeah. So like I said, I think there's some pretty interesting spots there for Samuel. He's available in more than a handful of leagues looking at the waiver wire. So if you need a bye week at or just a stash to see if he can keep on giving you production PPR leagues, big fan of Curtis Samuel here. Other side of this matchup with Atlanta, I said it to Bender last week because Jonnu Smith was $2,900. He didn't like it, didn't like the snap count and the playing time. But like you go look at Player Profiler, the target share is there for Jonnu Smith. He's not running the same amount of routes.
He's top 10 tight end target share.
Yeah. So like, sure, he doesn't run as 100% of the routes like Kyle Pitts does. But when he does run routes, he's getting targeted more than Kyle Pitts does when Kyle Pitts runs routes. Right. So I think Jonnu Smith is a viable fantasy tight end right now, given the scope of the tight end landscape.
I mean, it could end up looking like, like the Eagles back when it was Ertz and Goddard, where it's like, they just underused two tight ends like that. Like, we're not going to drop Pitts. Pitts had a better game than Jonnu, but I mean, if Jonnu's going to be 17.3 target share, puts him top 10. The route participation isn't that good, but people think that Jonnu's like the inline tight end and Pitts is playing wide receiver. Not the case. Jonnu also lines up at wide receiver for like 70% of his snaps, 69.3%. Yards per route run, like you said, over 2, which is like, ridiculous. Yards after the catch is great. I mean, he looks like the Jonnu Smith everyone wanted him to look like, and he's playing with Arthur Smith. Smith.
That's what I said.
You talk about the bag of tricks, right? He's he's clearly got some tricks there. So definitely a DFS play.
And that's the offense that Arthur Smith runs. It was the 12 formation, right? They have the 2 tight ends out there all the time. Like, it's just what 12 personnel, right? So it's just the way they
go. If that knee trends the wrong way for Kyle Pitts, you see it sometimes. Like Arthur Smith said he's not healthy. We're hoping it trends the right way, but it trends the wrong way, and now it's wheels up, right? Yep. So something to think about. Let's clear a couple questions quick and get to the next game.
Sure. What questions we got going on?
Defensive stream this week. We got good defensive stream this week. Do you like the Bengals, Jags, Texans, Saints, or Raiders?
Bengals. Oh, up here. Okay. Bengals, Jags, Texans, Saints, or Raiders. Saints maybe. New Orleans is on the road against Houston. We haven't seen an interception yet from CJ Stroud, but he's hasn't.
That's a good defense.
CJ Stroud leads odd statistics, but if you go look at what is considered bad throws, CJ Stroud is up there in bad throws. So like, it could be a week where things come crashing down. We just saw how good, we know how good the Saints defense can be. They just blew up the Patriots last week, but I think this could be a week where Stroud has a little trouble against New Orleans. So give me the Saints for that defense.
Yeah, I like it too. Or I guess you could start, if you really want to go for upside, then just start the Raiders against the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, hey, Bill O'Brien said the coaches had a closed door meeting, really worked some things out, and they said they have a revamped game plan and strategy.
Oh, good.
Moving forward.
Oh, all set. Yeah,
and don't worry. Blocking for the quarterback.
David Andrews took all the blame for that, though, John. So don't worry about that.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, he also did not look very good.
Unless Dante Scarnecchia walked out of that meeting.
Him and Ernie Adams were both there.
Yeah, if Ernie Adams and Dante Scarnecchia were at the meeting, then I would actually turn around and say that I believe them. But if it was the same coaches that have been having meetings all year, I don't know why this meeting just because they shut the door this time, all of a sudden now the team's not going to suck. They got crushed, man. They got obliterated. So.
Again, Leo wants to know Puka, Waddle, Devonta, or Olave, pick 3.
Puka, you have to start Puka. Always.
Waddle's got the Panthers in a blowout game. Devonta Smith's got the Jets, and Olave has the Texans.
I get, even though I love Waddle, I would consider sitting Waddle for that one because you can run all over the Panthers. You don't necessarily have to throw on them.
Yeah,
that's kind of they're actually not that easy to throw on.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So you're gonna sit Waddle here?
I think I would, dude. Unless you want to sit Devonta, but John, what do you think?
That's fine. It'd be him. It'd be Waddle or Olave. So
put it this way, actually, make it easier on yourself. And again, this is why we try and do these later in the week. If DJ Reed clears concussion protocol, then feel free to sit Devonta Smith.
Sure. Ethan wants to know Dell, DeMarco, or DeMarcado, or McLaughlin a half point. Well, again, we'll know if Javante's out, you play Jaleel. Tank Dell's in concussion protocol, I think, too, right? Something happened with him last week where he got
Tank Dell's still in protocol. I checked it this
so
morning. He's not practicing this morning.
So if Javante's out, play with Jaleel. If Javante's in, you wait and find out the Dell DeMarcado situation, and then I probably go DeMarcado.
Yeah, check with us tomorrow. We're doing because McLaughlin does play tomorrow. We have 2 shows tomorrow to get these questions in. From 2 to 3, I'll be here with Howard Bender, and then from 7 to 8, John and I are just answering questions right before Thursday Night Football. So pop back in with us tomorrow, Ethan. We'll have a definitive answer on that. That's a tough one because
agreed with you here. 2 more questions, and we'll work our way through here. Yeah. Ethan again wants to know DSTs, Jets, Browns. Or do I stream Washington, Las Vegas, Minnesota, or the Rams? The Rams have the Cardinals this week. I don't mind the Rams.
Start the Rams, dude. Yeah. Don't start anybody against the Jets. Don't start anybody against the Eagles and 49ers. There's like 3 good teams in the league.
Yeah, like I would do the Rams. I would do Rams versus Cardinals. They don't have their running back, and Dobbs threw a bunch of picks last week. That for the sake of my Clayton Tune autograph cards here, Coop, I'm hoping that change is happening.
Yeah, right. For whatever team, I mean, like my philosophy right now is I don't care how good the defense is. I'm not starting him against the 49ers. I'm not starting him against the Chiefs. I'm not starting him against the Dolphins, and I'm not starting him against the I had another team that I don't like starting people against, but I lost it.
It'll come to you.
I think that
Jack
Eagles. It's the Eagles.
Chad wants to know Fields or Herbert.
Herbert.
Okay.
Against the Cowboys. Yeah,
up
that's
shootout potential. Against the Cowboys. You have Fields here against the what bad defensive Fields have? Bears have
the Vikings.
Yeah, I think I go Fields over the Vikings.
Yeah, go Fields. Go rushing upside.
Yeah, I mean, he's not even rushing upside. He's thrown for 8 touchdowns and 300 yards the last 2 weeks.
Okay.
There were
some boring plays there. There were some
last week, but what about against Denver? Denver
was the worst DVOA team that we've ever seen ever.
Yeah, Minnesota's right up there with them. Anyways, trade thoughts. Henry, Olave, get Kenneth Walker. Derrick Henry and Chris Olave for Kenneth Walker.
The answer's no.
Yeah. Probably. I love Kenneth Walker, but I don't know.
You're gonna want to have those guys, man. Like even in 10-man leagues and whatever, like bye weeks, injuries, you're going to want to have those players, man. Like if you're Eckler, Kamara, Spears, and you're going to trade away Henry.
Yeah. Well, you get Kenneth Walker. You get Kenneth Walker, Eckler, Kamara as your top 3, but you're limiting your wide receivers now to Amari, Pittman, and Nico. So
if it's a 2 wide receiver league. I do the trade. But if you start 3 wide receivers in a flex, then you just keep all those guys, man. Keep all those guys.
All right, let's move on now to the next matchup here on the board. We got Vikings, Bears. No Justin Jefferson just officially placed on IR. You got Jordan Addison, KJ Osborne moving up. Brandon Powell, I think, is going to play for this week, but I mentioned to Bender yesterday, Jalen Naylor was the guy getting those like 4th wide receiver snaps to begin the season. Right. He's missed the last couple of weeks as he's been on IR, but he's able to come off IR next week. So you could see Jalen Naylor kind of recapture his role in this offense once he is activated off IR and Powell goes back to being sort of that like gadgety special teams guy that they have. So that's just kind of a deep stash play potentially there, but it's Addison, it's Osborne, it's Hawkinson in this offense now moving forward.
Yeah. Gabriel just said 2 wide receiver league. So I say do the trade, man.
Okay.
And honestly, John, this one is actually pretty easy for me because they use Josh Oliver. They use CJ Ham. This is another one of those teams. I mean, they paid Josh Oliver so much money. They have to use him. They have to give him at least 30.
Josh Oliver was drafted. We thought he was going to be a pass catching tight end in this league.
I know. Turns out that the thing is, Mercedes Lewis, people forget once upon a time, he was like tight end 5. He was a top 5 tight end once upon a time when he played for the Jaguars, but he just turned out he's an amazing blocking tight end. It looks like Josh Oliver is going to be the same way. So, but he's going to play a number of snaps. So before we were just like, okay, we like Jefferson, we like Addison, can't really trust Osborne. Now we like Osborne, we like Addison, can't really trust Powell. I don't care if it's Powell. I don't care if it's Jalen Naylor or Jalen Rieger or any other Jalen's they want to run out there. I'm still going to go with Osborne and Addison as my 2 guys and lean on Hawkinson. Right. So in this game, we kind of know who the main characters are, but I do want to ask you, John, are you worried at all with Madison, he's had fumbles, he's had drops. Is Akers potentially going to creep up there, or do you still trust him? No,
I mean, there was definitely a brutal drop by Madison last week for sure, but Akers hasn't really shown me much of anything to think he's playing better than Madison at this point. So, I mean, if you have Akers, you just keep on holding him and see if that ever comes about. But Madison's going to continue to be that lead running back. They just weren't in a position to run the football last week to really get him going. But the 2 previous weeks, he had 90 yards rushing, 20 carries. So it's very clear that Madison is still their starting running back there.
There you go. Next game.
Bear side of things, again, obviously DJ Moore had the ridiculous day, but it was very much they kept jumping routes and missing. So how much of that was really Fields? He only completed 51% of his passes. So he wasn't great last week. It was just definitely the Washington defense. But the week before against Denver, he completed 81% of his passes and had a great day. Minnesota's not a great pass defense either. So I do think that Fields still has some viability here.
Yeah.
You're not going to sit on that at this point.
Yeah, and DJ Moore's entered that range where it's like you got to think about risk versus reward. And like at the very top, you're just starting very safe guys that have high upside. Like that's why it's so easy to start Devontae Adams, right? But at a certain point, you look at it and say, can I afford to sit DJ Moore? Like, can I afford to have DJ Moore on the bench? And it's starting to get that point. Very, very early in his career, Tyreek Hill was like that, where some games he would do nothing. And some games he would, but the games when he would do something, he would score 2 touchdowns and have 150 yards. And it just got to the point where you just ate the bad weeks. You had to eat them. And I think that's where DJ Moore's there right now. The way he's playing is, he's going to have bad weeks at times. You just got to eat them. So
yeah, honestly, I don't even think we're going to be at a point where he has terrible weeks anymore. He had a terrible week 1.
We're talking
but he's been serviceable wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, and then obviously the last couple of weeks where he's found the end zone, and last week especially.
Yeah. We're talking bad weeks now for him are going to look like 3 for 30,
50. Yeah, 3. Well, I think 3 for 50,
4 for 50. Yeah, something like that. Which so get him going, and definitely.
Where are you with Cole Kmet here?
Cole Kmet, I just wish he would play more. I mean, even this week where he had the 5 targets and caught all 5, when you catch all 5 targets, it makes the numbers look better than what they are. Because a lot of times you catch 3 of 5 and it doesn't look as nice. And the problem with Kmet is he only ran 23 of 33 routes. Again, he's not running all the routes, but still, I mean, when you look around this tight end landscape, he's top 10 in target share. His route participation, it's not Mark Andrews. It's not 90%, but it's still 70%. He blocks on 11% of his pass plays. So it's like he's not a very shiny pick, right? Like we look at Logan Thomas and everything's green on my spreadsheet. With Cole Kmet, it's all yellow except for the numbers that translate to points, which are targets and yards per run. So for now, he's just like a safe option you put in there. But if Cole Kmet's my tight end, I'm stashing another high risk, high reward player. So I'm starting Kmet, but I'm throwing a Musgrave or Kincaid or something on the bench. And I'm not just saying, okay, I have Kmet. I don't have to worry forever, And Kmet's a guy, if you could package Kmet up and trade him up for somebody safer, I would do that too. So.
When do you give up on Dalton Kincaid?
Never. I give up on Dalton Kincaid. I mean, just ask the people that gave up on Amon-Ra St. Brown his rookie year. Just ask them what happened.
Okay. Well, I'm talking about for season long, not dynasty, man.
In season long leagues, people gave up on Amon-Ra St. Brown. He was wide receiver 70 through 10 weeks. And over the final 8 weeks, he was wide receiver 4.
So just saying. But we do know what caused the wide receiver 4. The entire team got hurt.
Exactly, dude.
So just in case the entire Bills offense gets hurt, we have Dalton Kincaid.
The entire defense got hurt this week.
Sure. I guess anything's possible. All right, let's go down into the Colts Jacksonville game. Minshew Mania back again. He's looked pretty good in the 2 games. He's come in, relief. His lone start was on the road against Baltimore, a tough place to play. On the road against his former team, Jacksonville, this week. Jacksonville coming off of 2 weeks in London. Maybe they're dealing with some time difference hangovers here. Thoughts on the Colts offense this week?
Yeah, I went back just to check, and if you include injuries to Minshew as well, this is the 9th different time that he started, and then someone else has started, and he started, and then someone else has started, and then he started. So it's official Minshew Mania Part 9 here. I'm excited for it, and I just want to see a home game for him, dude, because when they win at home, he goes wild. He goes and he's dapping up fans and he's signing jerseys. Like if you can go to a Minshew game and have a Minshew jersey, even if you're a Jaguars fan, bring one. because like he goes out of his way to like, he's snatching flags and running around. Like he is a showman for sure. So I love when Minshew starts for fantasy. I think it's a lateral move for the pass catchers. It's fine. Lateral, maybe even up, right, John?
I think it's a boost.
I think it's a boost. Yeah.
Accurate quarterback. So
yeah. The one thing with Josh Downs, I mentioned, I kind of alluded to this earlier. I want to see Josh Downs, the flip, right? So right now it's Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce playing like the whole game, and Downs plays in 3 wide but comes out for 2 wide. Last year, Paris Campbell actually played in the slot, and then he stayed on the field for 2 wide, and Alec Pierce came out. Alec Pierce has been so inefficient that I'm wondering if maybe that's going to happen at some point where they start saying, hey, you know what? Instead of Josh always coming out, maybe sometimes we'll have Alec come out, right? Yeah. And just at least have it even. That would be wheels up for Josh Downs. But even now, they've run enough 3 wide receivers.
Yeah, Downs is playing 71% of the offensive snaps. So, he doesn't have to play 100% of the snaps to be viable. He can play 70.
Viable. Well, that's why I'm saying he's viable now. Yeah. But just imagine, like, what is Alec Pierce playing? Alec Pierce is playing 90-something%.
Yeah.
I mean, Michael Pittman is playing 99.3%. He plays every single snap, but Alec Pierce is like he plays an insane snap share. If you look at his stats and like what he's actually producing, you would never guess that this player is like in snap share. What, he's like a top 20 player or so. I'll pull it up, but like,
no, I got it. He's played 92, 100, 96, 91, 98,
100, dude.
100% of the snaps in week 2.
Right, and that was a big game.
He had 2 targets.
Yeah. So if you look at all the wide receivers in the league in snap share, Alec Pierce is wide receiver 6.
Maybe he run blocks well.
He must. I mean, he is 6'4", so I don't know, dude. But I don't know. I'm just ready for Josh Downs, dude. He's wide receiver 6 in snap share, and he's wide receiver 87 in target share.
Yeah, we're close. We're close to Downs as it is now. So that's good.
All exercise.
Other side here, Zay Jones got hurt again. So you got Ridley and Christian Kirk likely as your top 2. Evan Ingram continues to play pretty well. And then, hey, is Travis Etienne finally becoming the running back we had hoped he'd be?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's top 5 for me, I think, at this point. It's hard to, like, obviously you got to rank CMC ahead and Pollard and Bijan. But after that, I start looking around and I'm like, Etienne's not that much different than some of these other players. So, especially after the big week this week. So, yeah, we're in on that. And then, Ridley and Kirk, you start them where you have to. Definitely solid starts. And Evan Engram also very solid start. He's an angel. You can count on him to, I mean, even in a bad week like this, he got 8 targets. So get him out there, man. Everybody in the chat, dude, thank you for popping in. Southsco, Toropic, we see you guys. We're just going to rattle through the games here real quick, and then we're going to hit questions. So throw the questions in. Yeah. And if we don't get to the questions right after this, I'm staying on. Howard Bender's coming on, and we're doing all trade talk, whatever trade questions you have for the rest of the next show. So make sure you're hanging out with us for that.
Yep, 100% here. All right, next game on the board, 49ers Browns. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey continues to dominate. Thoughts on this offense? George Kittle coming back from 3 touchdowns last week. Cleveland off of a bye. We don't know the quarterback situation. Deshaun Watson not practicing again. Apparently, there's been some reported issues within the Browns clubhouse, questioning the toughness of Deshaun Watson. People are not thrilled with his decision to sit last week and then potentially now sitting this week as well. This one feels like a rout. 49ers are just too much of a machine right now.
Yeah, I mean, they're too good. That really stinks that, who would have guessed, you give this guy crazy money and he's supposedly not that great of a guy, and then he doesn't play well, that people would be upset about that. So, I mean, there you go. Who would have seen that coming?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, so the good thing about the 49ers is because they use the fullback, all that, who the main characters are. CMC, Ayuk, Debo, Kittle. The one that's kind of hard to trust right now is Kittle. So what are you going to do, man? But you still got to roll him out there. At this point, though, I'm stashing another player, and if you can trade Kittle to upgrade to a safer tight end, I would try and do it, just because when they don't need to use them, they don't use them.
George Kittle or Jonnu Smith this week?
George Kittle, dude. Come on now. I can't do that.
Why can't you do that?
He's just not playing enough.
Statistically, Jonnu's outperformed Kittle more than Kittle's outperformed Jonnu.
Statistically, it's close, dude. I mean, like, Jonnu's target share is 17, Kittle's is 16. But Kittle still runs more routes. He's got a higher ADOT. He's got his yards per route run's not that far off. And, they're not going to destroy the Cardinals every week the way they did. I mean, they're going to play the Cardinals again, but this week versus the Browns is going to be a little more competitive. I'm still going to start Kittle.
Okay. Just saying.
I can't do it.
Nine or more points the last 4 weeks for Johnny with PPR.
In DFS, where you get a discount, now you're talking. But no, just straight up.
Again, 9 or more in PPR leagues, 9 or more fantasy points for Jonathan Smith each of the last 4 weeks, or Kittle's giving you 6, 16, 2, 27. So
I straight up believe that George Kittle scores more fantasy points than Jonathan Smith this week.
Okay. We'll see.
We will see.
Next matchup. Here, anything else in this matchup here, Browns?
Nah.
Okay. Gino, Seahawks against Bengals here. Finally, a good game out of Joe Burrow last week against the Cardinals. Jamar Chase continues to do the damn thing. We'll see if T. Higgins is back or not this week. But Seattle coming off of a bye here on the road against the Bengals. Thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, thank goodness Joe Burrow is back, because it's been bad for the team. Like, not only is it good for Burrow and everyone on the Bengals, but it's good for Geno Smith too. Like, this Bengals defense has been terrible. So if the offense is going to be bad, then you get these games where we're not getting shootouts. We're not getting fantasy points. So hopefully Joe Burrow can prop this game up so that Geno can have a get-right game too. So I love that Burrow's back. Football's better when Burrow's good. So, you know what you're doing with these teams. You got to start Joe Mixon, even if he's just meh. You're starting Kenneth Walker. I mean, John, are you holding Jackson Smith and Jigba anywhere, or are you just done with that?
I mean,
I've looked at him on the waiver wire so many times because I wasn't really drafting him, but now that he's on the wire, I look at him and I think to myself,
well, wouldn't he apply your Amon-Ra St. Brown analogy here?
Well, that's the thing. One injury to Tyler Lockett or DK Metcalf, and now he's got a full-time role.
I would stash him if you have the room to stash him. Sure. I feel the same way about Zach Charbonnet. Just given the depth of the running back position right now, don't you? I usually am not a guy that says like, "Hey, go get a handcuff and wait it out." I usually want guys that can contribute to my team. At this point, I want the handcuff to my running back, because if something happens,
right,
I almost have no way of getting that guy off waivers.
Yeah.
Right? With all the people are going to be like sharks on that,
especially the proven handcuffs. Like, now we've actually seen enough situations where guys have missed a game. And like, we know Zach Moss is good if something happens. We know Tyler Algier can get it done if something happens. So those guys are even more valuable because like they're still the hypothetical handcuffs, and a lot of times those guys fall flat.
People were picking up DeMarcado two weeks ago when Ingram got hurt. Like, just wait, because the depth, the status of the running back position was so bad that anybody that was the backup running back, people were getting added weeks ago. So
he's rostered in the Bourbon Bowl.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. People wasted no time because of how bad the running back depth is this season. Anybody else here you want to discuss?
No, that's it.
All righty. Saints, Texans here. Alvin Kamara looked really good against the Patriots. Didn't even need to catch the football to do it. Just ran all over them. Gets a great spot here against the Texans, where in order to beat them, you're supposed to run. The Falcons actually kind of struggled a little bit last week doing that with both Bijan and Algier, but I would expect the Saints to be able to figure that one out a little bit better. How are you breaking this one down?
Yeah, the beauty of Alvin Kamara and Austin Eckler has always been that you need like a super defense to stop them, because if they can't run, then you just throw it to them, right? We're matchup proof to some degree, though there are some defenses that can handle it all. Like Kamara catching 13 passes for only 33 yards. But in this case, I think Kamara is locked in, must start. You can't start any tight ends from either of these teams, in my opinion. Dalton Schultz, he still doesn't quite have the usage. I mean, if you have to in deeper leagues, then maybe, but I'm not going to my way to do it. And Nico Collins is going to be after this week, I'm going to be trying to buy Nico Collins, because people are going to look at it and say, okay, we were high on this guy, but now we think maybe he's a fraud. Not a fraud. You're going to have tough matchups. Last week he faced who they have last week, John? Last week he faced AJ Terrell. This week he's going to face Marshawn Lattimore. After this game, I'm going to start putting out offers for Nico Collins, and hopefully people just don't realize that, hey, you know what? Sometimes you go through a tough stretch of matchups, but what we saw early in the season, when they get the right matchups, that's going to start happening again. So give me some of that. And we got to keep an eye on Tank Dell and protocol. If he's out again, then Robert Woods is definitely a DFS dart throw.
Yep, 100%. They can't do anything with the running backs in Houston. They don't run the ball well. And the Saints are a really good running defense. So, Panthers, Dolphins here. I mean, listen, it's a 13.5-point spread. Carolina's 0-5. We're not really expecting them to be overly competitive here. But Adam Thielen has been a monster now for the last 4 weeks. I mean, listen, they're just gonna throw in the football. They're gonna be in spots where they're trailing often. If this game does turn into a blowout, Dolphins will just play relaxed defense, which makes it easier for Thielen to have success. And we got our answer on what happens when every wide receiver is healthy, and that is Marshall does not play.
Didn't play a single snap. Crazy, didn't play one snap. But hey, that's what it is, man. So yeah, Thielen, got to get him out there, man. You got to get him going. And the Vikings, they I think it was a lot of it was that like he kept getting hurt, and they were like, well, if we can't count on this guy, we got to get rid of him. But they only saved $6.4 million towards the cap this year, which is less than they're paying Josh Oliver. Got 3 years, $21 million, and now that Justin Jefferson's hurt, can't help but sit there and think, boy, would it be nice to still have Adam Thielen considering the level he's playing at. So he's looking good. Miles Sanders, we already kind of talked about him, but you just can't start him until he's healthy. Or I'm trying not to. I have a lot of leagues where I might have to at some points, but right now he's on my bench wherever I can do it. The one thing I want to mention from this game is that Raheem Mostert, because I know we're crunched for time, we're going to get going. Raheem Mostert, absolute smash spot. Every single, Baby Bowl, FFPC, DFS, every spot I can start Raheem Mostert, I'm doing it. Because this Panthers team, you could run all over them. You can't really throw well. Devon Achane's out. Jeff Wilson's not activated. I mean,
they opened the window. So here's the thing. They opened the window for him to start practicing, which means they can't activate him at any time. So if he starts practicing, they could very easily activate him ahead of Sunday's game. So that's something you want to watch out for. If not, was it Chris Brooks, I think is the guy. He's been playing ahead of Salvin Ahmed, but you would think Ahmed would also be active for this week given Achane's injury, assuming that Wilson isn't activated here. So some status there, but it's Mostert all the way. 4 p.m. games, the Patriots Raiders going into Las Vegas. I don't think you can play anybody in New England, but again, they claim that they are revising their game plans and they have a new strategy, and Tyquan Thornton is going to be active for this game, a guy that can at least run by some defenders potentially. I don't know.
That makes it even harder. To start somebody, because if they like for them to be like, okay, like they're saying not only has it been bad, but they're saying, hey, we're going to do something totally different. I'm going to sit back and watch and see, if I know Pop Douglas, is he still in protocol?
I think so. So they've been showing Keyshawn Boutte practicing with the ones as well this week. So like with Juju hurt, it's her Juju and Pop Douglas got hurt. Could see Boutte and Tyquan Thornton active for this week.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well then, yeah. I mean, like I'm just gonna sit back and see what happens, and then see if there's an ad. But you can't start anybody.
No, I would agree with you. Raider side, Jacoby Myers has been a monster.
Great for fantasy, that team.
I mean, I took him in the 11th round of the league, not expecting this. I'll tell you that much. And you got to play the revenge narrative, right? Garoppolo, Myers, McDaniels going up against the Patriots. So love all of that here.
Yeah, you're starting Adams, Myers, and Jacobs, and that's it, which is nice.
Yep. All right, next game here, Lions, Bucs. Bucs coming off of a bye, and they're at home getting a Lions team here. Still, maybe no Gibbs potentially. Amon-Ra St. Brown is expected to play. Where are we going in this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, if Amon-Ra St. Brown plays, then you play him. David Montgomery, you obviously play him everywhere. Jameson Williams, you're just continuing to stash him, but he played 28% of the snaps, which is the most he's ever played going back to last year, but you're just holding on to him. On the other side, Mike Evans, absolute smash spot. The way I look at Raheem Mostert is the way I look at Evans this week. Like these Bucs corners have been fairly soft, and this is a week, the Lions are going to score. The Bucs are going to have to come back and score. Evans he's like the wide receiver Raheem Mostert for me.
Yeah, I love Evans. Again, Baker's on DraftKings, only $5,400. Could be a pretty good stack to go there. Assuming his hamstring's okay. He's been dealing with a little bit of a hamstring injury, but hopefully that bye week has given him the opportunity to heal up. Cardinals, Rams. Matthew Stafford is my favorite quarterback this week. I would rank him number 1 if I was doing the rankings. I think he throws all over this Cardinals team. Cooper Kupp came back, looked as good as Cooper Kupp ever did. Puka Nacua looked as good as he had been doing all season. T.J. Atwell scored. A healthy Matthew Stafford is good for football when you're a Rams fan.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. That's a good thing about this situation is that the Rams, they look competitive, but they're not like, they're not like undefeated or anything. So they have to take this divisional game very seriously. So I think they just beat the hell out of the Cardinals. Sometimes you worry that it's like the 49ers against the Cardinals, but I don't think the Rams are good enough for it to be like that. I think it could be a shootout and a really good game for fantasy.
Yep. For the Cardinals side, I mean, if you have DeMarcado and you have to play him, you play him. We'll see the Ingram status there. Receivers, Marquise Brown and Ertz, the 2 I trust the most.
Yeah, no, like for sure. I mean, Michael Wilson, the crazy thing is, after his good game the week before, where he was third in snaps, this week he was second in snaps and had a terrible game. So we do follow the usage and we like the usage, but man, it would have been nice to see him get the ball a little more, you know?
Yep, for sure. Give me Jets, Eagles thoughts.
Yeah, quick, yeah, because we got to get out of here. Jets, the Eagles. The Eagles are going to trounce the Jets, and you can start. It's very difficult to start Garrett Wilson because of the corners. I mean, just this is probably the if DJ Reed's healthy, game is going to have the best four corners that you'll see in any game of the year. So Dallas Goedert, you still start him wherever you got him. You're not going to start Tyler Conklin or anybody else. Brees Hall, you got to start. DeAndre Swift, you have to start because the explosive upside of those guys.
I agree with you. Listen, the Eagles defense, they gave up a lot of yards last week to Kupp and Bakua, but I'm not going to expect that to come from Zach Wilson throwing the football. So the Giants Bills, also Sunday night football game. Bills we don't even know if Daniel Jones is going to play in this game. We don't know if Saquon Barkley is going to play in this game. It feels like a rout for Buffalo. Play everybody if you got them. You got Stephon Diggs, James Cook, Gabe Davis, maybe.
Darren Waller, you start because Matt Milano broke his leg. You start Gabe Davis and Diggs because they start rookie. The Giants roll out rookie cornerbacks every week. They expect to win games. And then one last game, John, we're done.
Cowboys Chargers. I think you play everybody, but I expect the Cowboys to bounce back after an embarrassing loss against the 49ers. And Bender talks about it all the time. The Chargers at home, they just stink. So
they stink. That's it for us.
That's all we got, guys, this week. Stay tuned again. Links in the chat. Alarm Fantasy Football coming up next. We'll talk to you later.